To my fellow colleagues present here today, I am Mohammed Junaid, an eco-representative from American University of Sharjah. Let me tell you something. Today we have a panel to discuss about how we can have opportunities to engage students in sustainability. We have alumni, students, professors, industry to discuss about key competencies and skills and how can we incorporate them into higher education and the key contributors, the role they have to play. My fellow eco-representative, Sabiha, and my fellow students, Dana, Alina, and I, have come up with a concept paper that suggests that we need to have an inclusive network of students, alumni, professors, and industry to have the conversation about sustainability to go on. Other than that, we believe that we need to incorporate forward thinking into higher education. Rose Armour, Head of AUS Sustainability, will be moderating this panel. Thank you. Over to you, Rose.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Noor Atiyah. I'm an American University of Sharjah alumni and a current master's student in the University of Sussex, currently working as a sustainability practitioner.
Hello everyone, my name is Sabiha Amin. I'm majoring in architecture at the College of Architecture, Art and Design at the American University of Sharjah. I'm also an eco-representative and here presenting ideas as discussed by my colleague Junaid.
Good evening, my name is Francesco Paparella. I'm a professor at New York University Abu Dhabi, where I direct the Arabian Center on Climate and Environmental Sciences, and I'm the co-chair of the Climate Change Research Network of the UAE.
Thank you. Hi there, everyone. My name is Muwafaq Al-Khudairi, and I'm a climate change advisor working in a consultancy known as GHD. I'm also a member of the negotiations committee here within the UAE delegation, and also a member of the support team for the Climate Change Research Network.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining us on this panel. We're really looking forward today to talk about how we can really bring sustainability into the classroom, how we can build those skills and build those competencies of our youth so when they enter into their careers, they have the capacity to be valuable, to be assets. And we need to know, as a higher education institution like American University of Sharjah, we need to know and make sure that we're teaching those skills so that our graduates are valued and sought after. And this is one of our goals, is to really be seen as the place that people are turning to get sustainability professionals. So first of all, I'd like to start with you, Morafa, from the industry kind of perspective. When thinking about people you have worked with who are early in their sustainability careers, what are some of the skills you were seeing that make the most successful candidates?
Thank you very much for bringing up this question. I actually think this is a really interesting one to discuss. The main reason being that I'm actually only 27 myself, and so therefore I was actually one of them very recently. And having worked in the Ministry of Climate Change recently, I've had a chance to work with a multitude of different interns and a lot of people who've also been just raised up to the position of analysts and just in general within the industry. I think the main one, if I had to summarize it down to one word, is adaptability. When you come to the field of sustainability, the main thing to remember is that it's an extremely broad field. There are so many different disciplines that are all caked into the field of sustainability, so it means that no matter what your background is, there's a very good chance you're not going to be prepared for everything that it brings towards you. The way for you to actually try to transition from this and to make a successful career out of the field of sustainability is to be the type of person who is willing to learn, to accept the fact that you're not going to be proficient at everything that you come across, to be willing to embrace that challenge and take things forward. I had a lot of these types of situations myself just coming into the career. And I think a really good example of this is that my actual background is oceanography. And if you go to that, that's actually a very niche field. But I'm currently working as a climate change advisor. And I focus very heavily in the field of climate change. And I've gone from negotiations towards data analysis, looking at modeling, talking about the NDCs. There's a very wide range of work that I've had to do. But the main way to get through this is purely by trying to understand that it's not about whether you can do the work, but whether you're willing to actually take the time to embrace it and to try to learn it in the process and actually go forward with that.
Very interesting, and I think that those are some of the harder skills to really to teach people and to move that. So based on your experience, how should we be working to connect students, industry, and higher education faculty to ensure that these kinds of skills are being acquired and to increase the success level of those students. So how can we get them to interface with the right people and to be able to use those skills and build those skills?
Okay, so this is actually, I think this is a challenge that's been faced for a very long time now. It's not something that I think we could come up with a solution for overnight. But generally, what I think is that we need to try to have an interconnected community. We recognize that the youth are all very interested. They're invested and they want to try to make a change, but they don't have the resources or the experience to do this. What we need to do is try to integrate them through networks, to try to find an area where they can actually voluntarily coordinate and to work with, because I think experience itself is the best teacher. A good example of this is actually the Climate Change Research Network. Although it started off as something that's built off of researchers, it now does have a youth division. And you're starting to see this sort of thing open up in a lot of different areas. Even here in COP27, we're now talking about the youth delegation. We're bringing youth from different universities who are coming and supporting us in terms of the negotiations. They're seeing exactly what happens in the negotiation tables. It's that direct on-hand experience that gives them the ability to then transition towards an actual field and make them more desirable as well in the workplace. So I think, just to summarize for your question here, the best way to try to get them kind of out of that little pool where they're incapable of trying to actually make a difference is to give them that access point through these types of networks, committees, organizations, voluntary programs, but it's mostly just to have the initiative. We need them to step up, to raise their voice and to say that I would like to contribute, I'm here to support, and to get out of their comfort zone and be willing to do something that they may not be comfortable doing, just to make sure they can actually get their foot in the door. From there, I think their experience will take them forward.
You know, it's really interesting, like all of the things that you've just said really highlight what the students and what the youth are getting here at COP27. I think that the ambiguity of the scheduling and the schedules come out late at night, so you need to have that flexibility. You can't, I don't have the plan for the week. I just don't. And so learning all of those skills, this is a perfect example of where they're getting those skills and building on those. So thank you so much. That was great. So my next question is actually for you, Noor. From what sustainability competencies and tools did you learn in university that you feel have been the most useful in your career thus far?
Thank you, Rose. So actually, the tool I'm choosing to speak about today is the academic syllabus that we received at AUS. So the syllabus in 2014, when I first entered the university, looked completely different when I graduated in 2018. And it was because I studied environmental science, which I thought was a very technical field. But as I entered AUS, I started to understand that actually the environment was a huge umbrella that included a lot of other compartments. And so throughout the years, I guess the education system kept on evolving and introducing new courses. So it started off as technical, but eventually I started taking environmental justice courses. I started to take SDG courses, sustainability courses, and that was something that I did not expect at all. And this continuous evolving of the syllabus directly reflects the field once we graduated, and I guess it wasn't just the educational tool, but also this character development or this adaptability and agility that we developed, because every single semester we were faced with a completely new angle of environmental science or of sustainability, and I guess as you have been mentioning, it's complete. You know how we always make fun of algebra and say, how are we going to use this in real life? Environmental science and sustainability, everything you learn is directly applicable, and you're going to be learning every day. And that's something I learned through the evolution of the syllabus tool in the American University of Sharjah.
Fantastic. And so I have a follow-up question actually for you as well. So what suggestions do you have for current student and faculty to build and enhance on the sustainability competencies and skills that you gained at university that you think would help them?
So I want to emphasize how sustainability, as you've mentioned, has become and is very, very broad. So it does not only cover the environmental aspect of things, as we've been seeing, the ESG model and mindset is being very integrated these days. So it involves environment, social, and governance, and a lot of times sustainable finance. So what I want to kind of advise or push forward is integrating sustainability in every single major. It is applicable to every single major, and we see that every day. And I mean, Nazli here is our ESG director, and for a very long time, we have been training employees, about sustainability, whether they were from finance, from facilities, from you name it, it's involved. And I think this needs to be reflected in the academic background as well. Everyone should graduate with a sustainability course, not about sustainability, in a holistic sense, but sustainability that is directly relevant and implementable from their major.
So thank you so much for saying that. One of the things that we really, really try to focus on at AUS is the sustainability mindset. And I truly believe that, that our goal is that all students graduate and have the capacity to think about sustainability and in their decision making, not only in their professional, but also their personal lives. And I think that that's so important, and you're right, there's not a job out there that doesn't have to take sustainability into consideration in some way. And I think that people don't realize that when they're going through university, that this is going to play a role. So thank you so much, that's great.
Thank you very much. Actually, something else I learned about applicating sustainability in the higher education. So as I mentioned, I'm doing my master's in the University of Sussex, and I was not expecting to have an educational course for 2 full years without actually learning anything that I had to memorize. It was completely based on this intellectual approach of you understanding how sustainability is framed in different agendas, whether it's political, scientific, financial, understanding how to build strategies and how. So it's completely based on this intellectual approach rather than an academic or a memorizational approach, which I think is very important in higher education.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So, Francisco, I'm going to move to you next. As an educator, how can we facilitate the students' transition from university to the sustainability field to ensure that they have the right skill set, based on especially what we've heard from Noor and Marafa here? That one's no longer working.
Okay. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So, as an educator, how to facilitate the transition from the university to the sustainability? Let me start with an observation. Sustainability of all possible careers is one in which the pace of innovation, I would say the pace of revolutions, is faster. What happened 10 years ago is already completely obsolete, it's gone. If you're thinking about what companies were using 40 years ago, it was archaic. So what should we do in the university? Should we just teach the latest approach, latest technique, latest trick, latest equipment? If we do that, we will form people that are obsolete, are going to be obsolete within 5-10 years. So, and this is sad because a lot of the times people actually are tending, they want to have the latest thing. But the real value in academia, in particular at the undergraduate level, is learning how to learn. And that's actually what we have. I was very happy hearing, we didn't prepare that with Muafak. I was very happy to hear that from Muafak. Learning how to learn. Because eventually you will have to learn on your own, something new, something important. And something new, something important can only be learned, it can only be constructed on a basis of really solid knowledge. Go for the fundamentals. Go for algebra. Go for calculus. Go for organic chemistry. Go for basic biology. That is the bedrock on which then you can really build everything else. And in terms of, I never worked in a private sector, but I've had some interactions with the private sector. And fundamentally, in my view, there are two kind of companies. The companies that really just want somebody who's ready to be productive from day one and go. But I don't know if I could suggest anyone to go into a company that only value how much they can squeeze out of you from day one, and they are not ready to invest on you. Then there are the other companies, those that can invest on you. They know that you have, they are looking really for that bedrock. And then they know, then they say, we'll teach you the rest. The latest equipment, the latest procedure, the latest tool. We'll teach you the way we want you to use it. But you have a solid foundation on which we can build. That's probably a place where it's worth working in, because they're in for the long term. So this is my overview.
So following up on that, what entities outside of the university and how can they assist in making sure that students are getting these opportunities? So the students that are coming out and who's going to invest in them, and what do you think that would look like? What would you envision that looking like?
It's really difficult. My crystal ball is cloudy, because what I can say is that 20, 30 years from now, the sector will be completely different than from today. And a lot of things that we may perceive as important now may have just found, their natural death 30 years from now. And something else that is not in our radar now may become the thing. So one possibility would be to look at the government sector as at least as a transition way. In fact, this is, I guess, is your story. Look at non-profit, the government sector, other kind of entities. They are not just companies. The problem with companies is that they cannot bleed red ink. They cannot just go for what is important, what is right, what is interesting. They have to go for what is profitable. Otherwise, they just cease to exist. There are other entities that instead can go for what is just, what is correct, what is right. And maybe you can explore, this is what I would say to a student, these other opportunities.
I think that's a great insight. I think being able to say that you've worked in those different fields and understanding how government works and then working in the private sector or vice versa are so important to make you, it's just it's an additional skill set and an additional asset to any company. So very nice. Thank you so much. So Sabiha, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. So what sustainability competencies and skills are you and your peers learning that you think are going to be the most valuable as you graduate?
That's actually a really good question in the sense that as students, we are meant to learn. But the way I see it is that every single field that we have, as Noor mentioned, can be related back to sustainability. And the fundamental thing that we learn from sustainability competencies is the ability to stay resilient, to be adaptive, to be able to be flexible in the case of a crisis, in the case or to actually understand what the future could be. And I think that's very important, to be able to kind of predict in a way that the future is something that is also created by us, but it's also something that continues as the past. So that understanding is important in our curriculum. It is also something that I felt that in my experience, for me, sustainability and the competencies that they have is very well already included into our systems, into our curriculum and our agendas that we put out. And the reason being is that at least one or two of the objectives that we have per class is something pertaining to involving sustainability, particular to your degree, to your course, to your field. And that's the most important thing, which is the application of your degree. It's not just something that you learn, but rather how do you apply it? And the foremost thing right now is dealing with the climate change and the crisis that it presents, and having the ability to apply what we learn, not just at university, but through our workforce, through industry, through our experience, and have that be an asset for us to fight the crisis that we come through.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And so thinking about that, what, as you have just one more year of school left, what kind of courses and what kind of activities would you like to see all students getting to get them engaged in sustainability and that you think would be valuable in building some of these skills?
I think for me, it would be the ability as an experience is to just be able to participate, to get this kind of exposure. Having situations where students are representing at such big conferences would enable them to interface with the industries, with companies, with ministries, organizations that align themselves not just with the university goals, but the country that it aligns itself with. And that's very important because as an individual, there's only so much that we can do. But when we work together as a group and we cultivate a sustainable mindset, which is something that every university should promote, as this is the time that students are founding their own way of looking at life. And so when we come in with a sustainable mindset and we get going with conversations, we're able to bring that even to our work field. So the experiences, I would say, would be the most important. And in terms of courses, I would say that every course has its ability to become a sustainability oriented course. And in the sense that you cannot ignore the basic or the fundamentals of the course that they are teaching, but at the same time, if the professors and the university is able to accommodate and understand the adapting or dynamic ways of sustainability and its needs, then that would be a great thing for students to push out when they graduate. And yeah, I think that would be apt for it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I know that we're right at 6, but we started a couple minutes late, so I'm going to be bold and take 5 more minutes. From the audience, are there any questions or any thoughts on how we need to be moving forward with engaging the different sectors and pushing sustainability in the curriculum and in the competencies and skill sets? Anybody have any comments? We have a couple more students and faculty here. And do you need a microphone?
So we talked about integrating sustainability into our curriculum. Do you think that providing a reward system in the curriculum, for example, for the most student who does the most research in sustainability, do you think it would be worthwhile to create a reward system for that, to rewarding students within the courses, instead of actually creating a course just for sustainability, in addition to their normal assessments? Do you think that would help?
Anybody want to take that one?
Just testing. Yep. Thank you very much for the question. I'm actually going to pop in here and just say that just on the context of reward systems, I think that's generally a very good idea. Ideally speaking, whenever you operate under the notion that you give someone the opportunity to try to excel, and you try to incentivize it by showing them that they have the opportunity to gain something from it, people will then be able to explore new ideas in more creative ways. And ideally, by giving someone the opportunity to do it in a way that they don't necessarily have to commit. It's not necessarily something they have to go directly into and to subscribe to in order for them to get it, but to have the opportunity to get there purely through their hard work, gives them the opportunity to see what they're actually capable of doing in the first place. Competition between your peers as well generally allows people to excel in multiple ways. But the idea, of course, is not to limit people to being in a reward scheme where it's only the person at the very top who can get a reward from this, but just to say that it's essentially a benchmark to work towards, but to give everybody the opportunity to try to reach it and be rewarded in turn.
Okay, I may also add that one difficulty that I see in this problem, in teaching sustainability, environmental sciences, and so on, is that this field is so intrinsically interdisciplinary, which means that everything can be made relevant to sustainability. The problem is that the teachers themselves, the professors, us, we don't know that. So, for example, the simplest possible climate model, the ice albedo feedback, I could frame it, but not because it's me, because I took the time to think about that as a pre-calculus exercise for a pre-calculus course. You know, the very basic, those courses that you say, what is that for? So, but you need a professor who takes the time to go there, look at that, study. Yeah, we have to study. Yeah, we are the professor, we have to study. The simplest differential equations, x dot equals x. That's an ecological model. That can be framed. It's a model of a lot of other stuff, but that can be framed as an ecological model. So when you say, can we do, you know, as sustainability students, take the classes that everybody else is taking and do something else and do something more and add that cherry on top of the cake? Yes, absolutely. The problem, on the other side, you need to have a professor who can see that that cherry can be put there. That, I think, the difficulty is where the difficulty is, because traditionally, the teaching field is a compartmentalized one. You teach algebra, and you don't even discuss what is that for. And you teach basic chemistry, and you don't even discuss what that is for. And you teach this. And then eventually, we'll see. No, you have to start seeing what is that for, the relevance of all of that immediately. That is what is really the change on our side. You know?
It's a lot, yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Noor, you had a comment? Oh,
Could I add some comments?
Go ahead.
Okay, great. So I just want to say that I think it is true. Giving an incentive would help students to divert their time and effort towards something related to this. But at the same time, it does have an extra workload on our professors to cope with it. And in that sense, I feel that instead of incentivizing the students in that sense, it would be more appropriate to incentivize professors and students to learn. So I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree with Dr. Francesco, because incentivizing professors to learn would enable them to have that knowledge to actually disseminate to the students. And that's the prime focus of professors, their ability to give that knowledge to students. For them to be able to adapt to these different things that are happening, the way things are changing and shifting, I think that would go as a long way to producing good students.
Thank you. It's okay, I got one. So my comment to that is, you know, usually rewards are given for someone who goes an extra mile, right? To someone who does something beyond what's being asked of them. But I think that at this stage in life, sustainability is not a nice to have anymore. Sustainability is an essential compartment of everything we do. So I think the reward scheme kind of could, you know, lead to someone thinking this is just an additional benefit, but I think it should be part of the scheme of marking and the implementation in general. And just like the COP27's motto is time to implement, the time is now. So I think rewards are something of the past now. We have to start action.
fantastic. So I actually have one more question, and it's for actually any of you can respond to it. So one of the things that I do in my job is I try to bring different outside entities into the classroom and try to figure out how to make that work. And I find one of the biggest challenges I have is the school calendar. So I have, right now, I have a very large entity who has come to me and said that they have tons and tons of a product that has value. They cannot figure out what that value is, but it's metal and webbing, and it has, they believe it really has a market value, but they can't figure out how to dispose of it and how, because right now it's going to the landfill. And so I now want to engage professors and figure out how to do this, but it's so hard to figure out when find a professor that can bring this in, find a time that works, find the industry that wants to work on that timeline. Like, how do we really get organizations into the classroom to really have these real world experiences on a semester system that has summers off? That, you know, how do we really do that? So I wonder if any of you guys have any ideas how we could better
link up those entities to make these things work so that students actually get this experience, that professors have these real world opportunities, and that industries really are getting a benefit from coming to universities and spending the time to give us these examples. Anybody have any clues on how I solve this problem?
I'm sorry, I think I didn't catch the entire question because of some of the cut-up. So if you could just summarize the question for us one more time.
So I want to know how we can link up industry, real issues in industry with schools based on a semester system, based on that you've got to come in, you have a limited time that you can work with somebody because class has already started, it's too far in the semester, there's not enough time, or those kinds of things. So how do we really bring these real challenges into the classroom in a meaningful way when you have such parameters?
So I think when it comes to the sustainability field, a lot of corporates have, committed to very challenging parameters. So whether they are becoming net positive or net zero or whatever strategy they are implementing, I know a lot of companies, have put these commitments that are very long term and require solutions to be implemented throughout. So I think a very interesting way would be to communicate with these corporates and have students build prototypes or build ideas or build strategies that could be implemented directly in these corporates.
Fantastic.
As a tentative idea, I would say we shouldn't try to draft these experiences into the courses, into the classroom, because the courses are for learning that kind of bedrock, that thing. Of course, in a relevant way, with a mindset that is open to make these links, these interdisciplinary links, but that has to be the bedrock. But then outside of the classroom, there should be time in the schedule for collaborating with the professors. So I have interns, I have students that during the semester help me out with some of my research. And if some company wanted to be part of that process, we could work out something, something that is of mutual interest. So rather than trying to put that into the course, I would put it outside of the course as an extracurricular activity. Mm-hmm. And I think I've seen students extremely committed to these sort of activities. Very recently, one of the students actually went to Sharjah, and I was really sorry for a conference. I felt bad because, as a student, I said, you go and present, I'll be there. And then for other commitments, at the very last moment, I said, sorry, Pedro, I cannot be there. He won the best paper award. So, he was so into it. He gave a fantastic presentation. And we worked the entire summer, and he's my intern now during this semester. I'm working on very applied things. We're building a box that is supposed to measure environmental data and relay them through the internet on a central server. And if we can do that at a cheap enough price, we can scatter these boxes everywhere and gather data that we really need in the UAE. Mm-hmm. So, and this is something, if I wanted to do that into the classroom, simply it wouldn't fit. It would disrupt everything else. Yeah. But outside of that, I would say it's working.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to give a bit of a short case study as well on this topic here, because I think there's two ways to look at this that are really interesting. The very first one is, similar to what Dr. Francesco said, it makes sense for you to try to keep it outside of the curriculum where you can. We don't actually know when these types of projects are going to be coming in. Yeah. And they can come from any industry at any time, and again, how well it interlinks with the work that you have to do is rather tenuous. So therefore, what you can do is create a scheme where these sort of things will come in, and you can open it up to the students, which gives you a variety of different incentives that could be worked on, but at the same time, without disrupting anything. Yeah. But on the flip side, there actually are certain opportunities that come in that tie so well into the curriculum that you do have the option to try to build it in as a module for that very specific situation. And back during my bachelor's doing oceanography, we had that very exact situation arise, where we got an invitation from South Africa, from the Coast Guard in South Africa, to come and do an investigation of the Eastern Cape to understand why the riptides were pulling in tourists out to sea. And so therefore they figured that this was a great opportunity to get a bunch of the oceanographers and just the students to run a lot of oceanographic tests of that water to identify what's happening, what are the actual patterns, deploy Lagrangian drifters, some dye, all the different work that you can actually do to make this happen. They built it in, they recognized that there's a time frame for this, and we put it together within a span of 6 weeks. We'd all flown over, we've done the work, we've come back, and we all contributed to writing a research paper together. So in a situation like this, I think that you can actually be creative enough to try to tailor it perfectly into a course if it can happen. But in situations where you don't have that, because you don't have any control over what the industry is, you have to be cognizant of whether you can or cannot interweave it with the work that needs to be done. So it's a bit of a mix, and I would say that there isn't a one-size-fits-all for this type of situation. But as long as the professors who are receiving these requests understand their course well enough and understand their students well enough, they can tailor it in a way that I think would work perfectly for that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much, and thank you all for indulging us for a couple of extra minutes and going over. But we really appreciate all of your insight and lots of great ideas, and thank you so much.